It's the next game, which makes it the most important game. We can't get caught up in personal vendettas. We just want to win.
Newton's fastball caught for the touchdown.
Welcome back, KB.
Ball popped up into the air and intercepted.
He's showing his inexperience a little bit.
Newton right pylon. Touchdown. Carolina Panthers.
There was no place to go.
And he's limping gingerly.
Simeon sets up the screen.
CJ into the end zone. Touchdown, Denver.
Newton takes a snap, looks to throw the slam, is kicked up into the air, and going to be intercepted. Anderson with the goal line, and Anderson has a Denver touchdown. Snap placement, kick on the way, and it is wide left. And the magic ain't done here at Mile High. Denver starting this 2016 season in grand fashion.
The Broncos beat the Panthers in their Super Bowl rematch last night, but the headlines are focused on the multiple headshots Cam took from the Denver defense. Several Panthers came to the defense of Cam after the game, but Newton himself, he took the high road, saying it was not his place to question the officials, and we didn't lose the game because of lack of calls. Mark, what should have happened with Cam last night taking those headshots?
Well, there were a couple of questionable calls that, I would look at and say, okay, I'm okay with them not throwing the flag on that. But there were certainly a couple of hits that should have been flagged. There was one that was flagged, but there were several that should have been flagged. And if that's what you're talking about, when you keep preaching to us as an NFL that player safety is paramount,
yeah.
Listen, there are certain guys that don't get they are not afforded the same protections that other guys in this league. You can't tell me if that was Tom Brady that there would have been multiple flags on all of those. Of course there would have. Cam Newton is one of those unique athletes that I think you get mesmerized by a referee, as a referee, by his athleticism, the fact that he ran the ball 11 times, probably 8 of them designed runs. He's unique. And because of his size and because of his stature, you allow the play to run a little bit longer, and I think you get caught up. I think that's human nature. The same exact thing happens to Ben Roethlisberger in the pocket. That guy takes shots that Tom Brady would constantly get flagged for. Peyton Manning back in the day would have been flagged for, that they don't flag hits on Ben Roethlisberger. And I think it's the size, I think it's the stature, I think it's the escapability and what they've done in the past. But yes, I agree with Cam Newton, and I applaud Cam Newton for his post-game press conference and not blaming that loss on those hits. Certainly, there's an effect there. Certainly, there should have been some of them that were flagged, but they missed. This is an extension of the preseason. Week 1, Week 2 is an extension of the preseason, and it was for the referees as well.
Well, Mark, let me take this to another level, and I can't wait to hear from you and Max on this point. We need to understand that they're coming after Cam now.
Sure.
They're coming after Cam. I mean, you literally have cats who want to hurt him. The dabbing, the celebratory, the celebrations and all of this stuff. The fact that he's big and athletic and doesn't back down, comes right at you, willing to give a lick as much as he's willing to take one. I thought that Darian Stewart, that should be a huge fine against Darian Stewart, the free safety for the Broncos. There's no question in my mind about that. Brandon Marshall wasn't so sure about him. Not Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware, not that one. But there were a couple of hits. There should be some fines coming down the pike. There's no question in my mind about that. But to me, that's a bit obvious. I'm a bit disturbed by it because they're treating him like the modern-day Shaquille O'Neal or football's version of Shaquille O'Neal.
Sure.
Except in basketball, there's less physicality, not to mention the fact that, again, even though Shaquille O'Neal was taking licks at the time, he was also capable of giving them because basketball allows you to do that to some degree. In Cam's case, when you're back there dropping back the pass or scrambling in the pocket, you're not in no position to hit somebody, but they're definitely in a position to hit you. What I'm saying more importantly than anything else is this. I think we need to look at Cam, too, in this respect. He's holding on to the ball a little bit too long. He's taking hits that are unnecessary. Sometimes it's just about running out of bounds as opposed to inviting or creating that contact. There's no question about that in my mind as well. And I think those are the kind of things that we got to look at because I'm looking at guys right now and they just seem to be salivating at the opportunity. They always want to get quarterbacks, but there seems to be a special emphasis on putting some licks on Cam Newton.
Of course there is. And one of the reasons there is because you do get those 8 to 10 designed runs a game. They ran a QB counter between guard and tackle on the left-hand side. That's the only team in the league that runs QB counter. I mean, that's who they are. And so he's big, he's physical, he is really one of the faces, if not the face, of the National Football League. And he's a guy, certainly, that you're going to get more opportunities to hit because he is running the ball. So, guys, do you want to take that lick? You're doggone right you want to take that lick. Of course you do.
Max.
Mark, I saw you on, I think it was Countdown, and you were on our show yesterday.
1 point.
Predicting a 1-point win for the Broncos, and that's exactly what happened, and that's why you're Mark Schlereth.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why I'm going to give both of you guys the opportunity to apologize to me
Well,
for
Well, this is what I'll say about that, Mark.
Yeah, I think what it should be.
Because Gano can't do his job.
Dear
I'm not apologizing to you.
That was just your superior knowledge of the game.
Mark, that was just the preamble to my question.
Okay, go ahead.
Here's the thing. They won by a point, even though Cam got him in position to win the game, and they kicked the winning field goal, and Kubiak, erased it.
Right.
Because he's smart. Okay, fine, but they still win by a point. Let me ask you this. If the game was refereed properly, because you even admitted earlier, those hits add up. They do affect you.
Sure.
And this is the nature of a full contact sport. There's no crying and this and that, but I'm just wondering about your opinion here. If it was called properly, do the Panthers win the game?
No, I don't think it. I think because I can go back and point to 3 or 4 plays that weren't called holding on Von Miller where he got tackled in the backfield, that flag wasn't thrown. We can look at the hands in the face on 4th down and 21, and Calvin Benjamin initiated the contact with his hand up in the grill of Chris Harris Jr. before Chris Harris reacted. It was his initial contact that created Chris Harris's response to the hands in the face. So there's a lot of things that weren't called properly.
But what I mean is the adding up, Mark, the adding up of the, like in boxing, you can hit a guy low on the hips, not in the cup, right on the hips, on the opposite side of the ref. And even if you get caught doing it after a while and you get a point deducted or something, those add up and the other guy can't move as well. So those helmet-to-helmet shots, you would think, are affecting Cam's play. It's not just not penalized. It's actually making him worse, you would think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a physical game. And I will tell you this about NFL players, and I'm this way 100%. If I know that I can get away with holding, if I know that I can get away with my hands outside and you're not calling it, let me tell you, I'm going to undress you. That's what's going to happen. And you essentially, as a player, push the envelope. You get as close to the edge as you possibly can, and if they're not calling it, then you continue to push the envelope until they start calling. It's like a pitcher painting the black. You started out an inch outside. If you get that call on a consistent basis, then you move it to 2 inches. Then you move it to 3 inches and see if you still get that call. And that's how that works. So if they're not calling it, and they're allowing you to hit the quarterback in the head, that's on them, and I'm going to keep hitting him because that's how I'm going to win a football game.
I got it. I have nothing to add. I've said what I had to say.
Right.
All right.
I've said what I had to say.
Social media
but
apologies.
I will not apologize to you.
Apologies
because Gano didn't do his job.
on the way.
Mark Schlereth and his superior
He did call
knowledge
a 1-point win.
Yes, and Trevor Siemian was outstanding in his responses to turnovers. That's another subject for another day.
That's true.
Yes.
He was.
I know he's, the biggest guy in the field, but he's still the quarterback, and we'll see what some of those look like. Obviously, we got one of them, but we didn't really gain any yards off of it, so I guess it is what it is.
Cam certainly took a lot of shots. What was your reaction?
My reaction is that it was an absolute travesty what I saw last night. I mean, listen, that last hit by Darian Stewart, I mean, listen, I'm not going to say he should be suspended because there's no history there. He's only been penalized twice, and it wasn't for, illegal hits or anything like that. Darian Stewart, he's earned the benefit of the doubt, so I'm certainly not calling for him to be suspended. But he definitely needs to be fined significantly. There's just no excuse for it. And when we look at what Thomas Davis had to say, what Greg Olsen had to say, they're absolutely right here. Cam Newton is 6'5", Max. 6'5". That's I mean, to hit him in the head, it's one thing when he's going down and there's a headshot that he ultimately incurs. It's another thing entirely when he's standing up, he's running, and all of a sudden you knock him upside his head. And by the way, I'm not talking about running plays because I understand when you are running the football, outside of the pocket and you're running upfield, calling running plays for Cam Newton, which, by the way, the Carolina Panthers should really rethink that strategy. I understand hits of that nature in that regard. But when you are scrambling in the pocket, when you are trying to get away from DeMarcus Ware, well, it is 1.5 sacks, of Von Miller, who had a sack as well, a key sack as of late in the game. When you're trying to get away from those guys and you're just scrambling outside of the pockets like a typical quarterback, and you see a guy like Darian Stewart literally lunge into him and knock him upside his head, I don't give a damn about the penalty being offset because of intentional grounding or whatever it is. That's nonsense. This is the quarterback position. We've heard the NFL we've seen the NFL go through extraordinary lengths, Mac, to bring attention to the need to protect football players, obviously overall, and in particular, the quarterbacks. Cam Newton is 6'5". He is 260, and there's no question in my mind that that has a lot to do with how he is being treated. He's basically being treated like he's the NFL's version of Shaquille O'Neal, when Shaquille O'Neal was playing in the NBA and could barely get a call because he's so dominant physically, et cetera, et cetera. That's what a lot of people are saying.
You reading my notes? Are you reading my notes?
No, not at all, obviously. But I don't buy that, Max. I don't buy that at all, and here's why. Because unlike Shaquille O'Neal, you're playing the game of basketball. They're trying to keep you from dunking the ball on their face, et cetera, et cetera. This is football. As a quarterback, you can do damage, but essentially you're at the mercy of the defense because they get to hit you, and unless you're running the football, you don't particularly get to hit them back. So there has to be some level of protection. If this was Tom Brady, he'd be protected. If this was Peyton Manning, he'd be protected. If this was Aaron Rodgers, he'd be protected. If this was Drew Brees, he'd be protected. If this was Big Ben Roethlisberger, they would be protected. Now, obviously, they're different kind of players, and I understand that because they relent a little bit. Not Big Ben so much, but the other guys relent. When pressure's oncoming, they really just concede to it and live to fight another day, whereas Cam will punish you. But I'm talking about specifically within the pocket. There is no reason on God's green earth why they got away with putting those hits that they put on Cam Newton last night. And there should be extensive fines. How he was not examined for concussion protocol throughout the game. Even though he was talking and all of that stuff, I don't want to hear it. There's something wrong with this picture, and the Carolina Panthers were right to bring it up.
I'm glad you brought up the point about the pocket because, well, when he's running the ball, he's a running back. When he's in the pocket getting ready to throw, he ain't a running back. But I want to make this very clear, and you anticipated my point there. Cam Newton is the new football Shaquille O'Neal. That's what's happening here. Cam equals Shaq. And that's not just because he's big. Lots of guys are big. It's because he's big and so dominant that the other team goes, well, what can we do? There's no way to stop this guy. I guess we're going to have to, quote unquote, bend the rules. And the officials, because they're human beings, also look at the and go, oh, my God, what can you do to stop that guy? I guess the opponents are going to have to do that. There's going to be some kind of looking away from these kind of things. It wasn't fair to Shaq. It's certainly not fair to Cam. And it speaks not only to the size, but the quality of Cam Newton's play. Now, there are two issues here. There's the safety issue, and there's the athletic issue. The athletic issue I just discussed. And then there's the safety issue. Shaq is playing basketball. When you bang down low, it's not the same thing as getting launched, helmet-to-helmet contact in the NFL.
That's right.
It's really dangerous. And sorry, rest of the world, if Cam Newton is so awesome physically that he is able to impose his physical gifts on the position. One of the reasons he's an elite tier 1 quarterback, Stephen A., one of them, there are others, but certainly a big reason is his size, strength, and overall talent. He's able to impose himself physically on the game of football and at a position where you're not supposed to be able to do that. And yet he does it, and I think it's just kind of accepted practice at this point. You can treat him a little differently than you can treat others. It's not fair to Cam. It's not right, and it should stop.
It should stop. You're absolutely right. And here's the bottom line. It's not fair to him. And I'll tell you another reason why it's not fair, because you didn't bring this up, Max Kellerman. Let me tell you something. Cam Newton is a big boy. For a quarterback, but he ain't a big boy compared to 300-pound, linemen coming at him, 285-pound linemen coming at him, linebackers that are 250 like locomotives coming at him. He's not that big to them. So when I look at it, I'm saying to myself, that's no excuse. It's no excuse to get away with doing this. The NFL has to step up. The officials have to step up, and they have to make sure that they protect this. This dude is a superstar in this league. Still tier 2 in my mind, by the way, but a superstar nevertheless because he's the reigning league MVP. Because as y'all well know, for me, tier 1 are people who do it consistently.
Yeah, we know the
one-year wonders don't do it for me. I'm not going for that. Tier 1 are dudes that have a history of excellence, not 1 year of excellence. It's very simple. I don't know why I see camera people looking at me, you looking at me, Max Kellerman looking. I don't know what the hell is wrong with any of y'all. I speak fluent English. Tier 1 is consistency. More than 1 year, not one
You know what? You know what boggles my mind about that, Stephen A? You, of all people, you're a very common sense approach person.
I am.
So you mean to tell me if someone wins the Heisman Trophy, turns pro, gets better and better, then plays at MVP level and is correctly awarded the MVP and takes his team to the Super Bowl, and then you just saw from him, by the way, last night, real toughness. Like, my issue with Cam last year is, Cam, everything's okay. I don't care. Dab, good. Sign balls, give them to kids. I love all that stuff. Jump on the loose ball in the Super Bowl, Cam. He showed such toughness last night. He reminded me of Eli Manning on the Super Bowl run where San Francisco, with that great defense, Eli had turf coming out of his helmet. It was twisted halfway around his head, but he stayed in there, gave his team a chance to win. Cam did the same thing yesterday. In spite of all the hits that you're talking about, in spite of the ankle, because it looked like, oh, my God, like, let's not forget now, for a minute there, everyone held their breath. What's going to happen to Cam? He comes back in the game. He leads his team to a position where a 50-yard field goal wins it. He led his team there. And by the way, they also kicked it and then got iced out and it didn't count and had to do it again. Like, he can't also kick field goals.
Well, listen,
I think if you look at Heisman Trophy winner, MVP, Super Bowl appearance.
Stop. I don't want to hear anything about. Hold on. I don't want to hear anything about a Heisman Trophy. He had 4 years in the NFL before last season. That's what I'm thinking about. I don't want to hear anything about what he did, years ago when he won the Heisman. I don't want to hear that. I'm talking about the 4 years prior to last year. That's all. But in the end, what it comes down to is that there's no denying that he's a superstar. There's no denying that he's big time right now based off of last year alone. And considering that and his marketability, it's a shame that the NFL didn't seem to be as protective for him last night as I happen to know they would have been for other star quarterbacks in this league.
Cosign.
Into that, too, and the penalty called against Darian Stewart. The first time there was a roughing the passer penalty against a Panthers opponent when Cam's at quarterback since week 11 of the 2014 season, and that was against the Falcons.